Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast with your host, Sana. Today, we're diving into the depths of healing, breath, and transformation with someone who has been on fascinating 33-year journey of guiding others to wholeness. Well, our guest is none other than Elijah Nisenboim, founder of Effiji Breathwork, a master of internal martial arts, and a Taoist energy practitioner. He's traveled to China over 20 times, composed 25 volumes of music for breathwork, and written 3 transformative books, including The Trauma Code, Unlocking the Hidden Map to Your Life's True Purpose. And listeners, Elijah believes that trauma isn't just a wound, it is the fertilizer for your life's purpose. Sounds beautiful, right? So
Yeah.
let's get ready to unlock the power of your breath, face your trauma with compassion, and discover how Taoist practices can lead you to more connected life. So, Elijah, welcome to the show, and it's absolutely a pleasure having you with us today.
Nice to be here again with you.
So Elijah, talking about breath work, we all breathe, but we don't breathe mindfully. We have never focused on it. And breath work has been such a powerful yet mysterious tool for many people. So can you share the essence of Effiji breath work and what makes it unique in addressing trauma?
Sure. Well, I think it's interesting that of all of our internal organs, our lungs are the only one that you can manually operate. So the choice to breathe is very powerful because breathing is the most important thing that you have to live. You can't live without your breath, your breathing. So sure, you can forget about your breath and not be mindful, not be aware of it, and you're still going to be alive. You can do the same thing with your life. But if you choose to think about your life, you're taking control of it. You're trying to master how you live it. And it's really the same with your breathing. When you choose to breathe consciously, you are potentially accessing the life force of the universe what's given you life, that's inside of oxygen. You are accessing that potential of who you are in the same way that you're trying to do with your life. So consciously breathing is a really powerful tool for accessing your potential. And lastly, I'll just say that, there are many ways to breathe. You can breathe through your nose, you can breathe through your mouth, you can focus on the left side, the right side. There's the inhale and the exhale, there's holding your breath. And that sort of makes up all the potential breath work methods there are. Mine, Effiji Breathwork, comes from a family of practices of basically it's mouth breathing, comes from India 5,000 years ago. And when you're breathing really full through your mouth, the way we do in Effiji Breathwork, you very quickly, within minutes, enter an altered state and start to access your unconscious, start to access the place where trauma patterns are held. And when you release that, you free up your life.
Definitely. Beautiful, beautiful, Elijah. Also, talking about your book, which is The Trauma Code, it reframes trauma as a map, as a kind of GPS to life's purpose. So, how did this realization emerge in your practice, and how can listeners begin to view their trauma as a tool rather than a setback?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that. I spent I've been at this. This is my 35th year, and when I first started doing breath work, what I noticed is how amazing people felt after doing it. But slowly, I started to realize that that didn't necessarily change their life, because people had uh what people wanted back in the when I first started was to get rid of things. They wanted to get rid of their bad feelings, their bad experiences. If somebody had like a sexual trauma or something like that, it was all about sort of getting rid of something. And I started to realize, when I was in relationship with people and talking to them about what was going on, was that there always seemed to be something that they didn't understand about themselves in the process, or didn't understand about the process, that there seemed to be like getting high and feeling better, but not learning anything about yourself. And I think if you know, for all of us, when we have bad things that happen to us or difficult things, let's just say a relationship breakup, which most people have had, um, later you're not, you don't regret having had the relationship, because there's always something you learn from it that made you wiser and better in your life. So my slowly I just started to realize that these difficulties seem to be that people had, and people, when you have trauma, you just want to feel better, you want to get rid of this stuff, but getting rid of it without understanding what its value, what it would teach you to make you a wiser person, would just have people sort of going back to continuing the same mistakes they were making. So eventually, I mean, within 10 years, I realized that what people were going through needed more processing. But during the pandemic, I stayed home. I was having the chance to sort of reflect on years and years of work, and it became apparent to me that the problem is the solution. The thing that people, like, you wonder, well, why does something, people ask this all the time, like, why does something bad things happen to good people? And I think if you don't make use of the pain and suffering that you have, then it becomes useless. It sort of becomes other, and in a way you're saying your life is that, because everything in your life should be sacred. Everything in your life should have value, even the difficult things. And once I started to, for myself, but also for others, help people just realize that trauma had an intrinsic value in unlocking one's life purpose, it changed my work a lot. And I think nowadays trauma is a very popular word. Like people are talking about it a lot, but still not necessarily talking about it as being valuable. And that's a hard thing to tell people, because society thinks of people as victims. Even if you get cancer, you're a victim. You're fighting cancer. But, and so if you tell someone, no, you're not a victim, you're the creator of what's happened to you, that can be very, very challenging for people to accept. But if you do accept it, that gives you power, it gives you agency, because if you know that you're the creator of that, then you can create something else. And using the tools that I have, and using the breath work in particular, is a way to embrace the difficulty as it arises when you're in the breath work.
Wow, wow. Well said, well explained, Elijah. Um, Also, now talking about the cultural exposure you got. So you have traveled to China for over 20 times to study Taoist energy practices. So how have these ancient teachings influenced your approach to trauma release and self-discovery?
Well, I grew up in Canada, and well, my first attraction was to India, and almost went to India several times, but before Indian culture had really infiltrated. I mean, India's culture is more romantic in a way, and so Westerners have embraced that much more. The deities and it's and Chinese culture is kind of a little bit harsh and a little bit practical. So to find the mysticism of it, it wasn't. I Well, here's a funny story. I had a girlfriend, and I wanted to move in with her. This is 1999, and she was living in the basement of this Tai Chi teacher from China named George Shu. And I could. It wasn't really her apartment. She had actually taken it off her ex-boyfriend. So I thought, well, I'll go take some classes from the guy, and then I'll ask him if I can move in. But he put me off for quite a while, and then finally, when he met me, I immediately realized, oh, this was going to be a really important relationship. And I studied with him for years and years, and then he took a group of people he teaches all over the world. So about 100 people went to China, and he assembled all these last great living masters of internal martial arts. And I really fell in love with the culture and China and the practice. And I went. This was in 2014, and I went back every 3 months for 5 years. And I was busy. Like, it wasn't like I had nothing else to do. And going from the United States to China, like, it's a 15-hour time difference and a day's travel. But I was really committed, and I studied really intensely and sort of penetrated the culture. But when the pandemic came, I didn't really realize that all of internal martial arts, Tai Chi, all these different styles, they come from Taoism. All my teachers were fighters, and they never really talked about the spiritual part of it. And I just had an awakening around what it is, and a lot of things sort of came to me. And then I ended up having a female friend who knew a lot about Chinese, who from mainland China, who knew a lot about Taoism, and was helped me to interpret my understanding of this practice that I'd been doing for 25 years and put it into personal development, because that's what I've been doing my whole adult life, is just helping people with healing and trauma. So I managed to sort of create this system that's truly my own. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Really, really exciting, Elijah. Now, now this is very interesting. You have composed 25 volumes of music specifically for breathwork, and now
Yeah.
we have been aware about how effective sound music is for
Mm.
self-healing, or for mindfulness or meditation as well. So what role does sound play in facilitating deep healing,
No.
and how can
You
sound
know this. You know this word, not a Brahma.
uh,
I don't think I think you don't. It means sound is God. I think it's Hindi, but sound comes out of silence, and I think music is the fastest path to the divine. I mean, it's a universal language.
yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously you can tell I have a lot of different interests, and my interests have ended up in my work. But my first was music when I was a child, and I wanted to be a musician, and I was a musician in my 20s,
Mhm.
and singer songwriter with the band, recording all this kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
um, when I first started doing breath work, well, my teacher, he we had a music connection, and he used music, and I just started using the music that was powerful to me when people were breathing. But the purpose of breath work is to take people away from association, like memory, and take them into who they are originally. So playing familiar music, while sometimes can elicit emotional response, doesn't really take people deeper into themselves. And I I started to hear things that I wanted to play during the breath work, but but they didn't exist. So I have a recording studio and I play lots of instruments. And in 2012, I composed my first piece of music, and then I just kept going. And I'll just say lastly that I see the breath work, every single breath in the course of an hour. The breath work effigy is 1 hour of breathing. Every breath is different. They're not all the same, and there are different stages of the breath work. So I see it, and I wrote about this in my book, in 6 stages. And I have music for each stage. Some of it's more meditative, some of it's more redemptive, some of it's more uh rhythmic, some of it's pushing, like, and so it's not meditation music or new age music. It's not, it's it's music that you almost, it's really powerful, but in some ways you don't even remember it. And that's the goal of the music. So once I started to create the genre for this, which was to create music that wouldn't be remembered but would be powerful, I realized in some ways, even as a musician, I was already that kind of a musician. Like, I like to, when I had to get up in front of people and perform, I don't, it was too much ego, and I was never really that good at commanding people. But if you put me in a room in the background to play, I could really influence what was happening in the room. So I
Wow.
sort of an attunement to that part. And I'll just say lastly, like my with Western music, the beauty of American culture, rock and roll, was the music that came out of the 60s could only happen in America because this is a country that values individual expression over everything else, and the power of the music expresses that. But I also love Indian music, North Indian classical music, raga, where the performer is also the composer at the same time. Like, you're always improvising, and there's no chords in Indian music. It's all based on root tones, like the tambora, which drones. And so Western music, they put all of the notes a little bit out of tune so they could create chords, create the piano. And so Western music is a little bit out of tune. And so I sort of have this hybrid with what I do, between taking from different cultures and creating music that sort of gets some of the essence of all these different musics.
Wow, wow, beautiful, beautiful. I think never have I ever, heard anyone or even thought about understanding music, rhythm, symphony, chords, from such deep perspective, or in the deeper intricacies of music or sound. But really, really, it reflects the kind of wisdom you have in understanding a different effect of music, a sound.
I could talk about this all day, and I would say, in the way that I am as a guide to people, like, I was always a really sensitive kid, and like, I can listen to voices. I can listen to your voice and deeply understand who somebody is just by listening to the sound of their voice. So sound is my secret sauce. It's my business. And so, and I'm a very lousy average musician, but I've had a recording studio in some way since I was 16, which is now like 45 years. So I'm really good with recording, and I have great equipment and lots of instruments. So I'm good at putting sound together, and I create sound to create kind of feeling and tone, and matching that with people when they're breathing.
Wow, wow. Lovely, lovely. Also, Elijah, martial arts,
Yeah.
internal martial arts, might not immediately come to mind of listeners, when in conversations about mindfulness. So, how do you integrate internal martial arts into
Yeah.
work and trauma release?
Um, Well, by the way, these are some of the best questions I've been asked in podcasts. I've been in lots of podcasts the last 6 months, and you're asking really great, interesting questions. So, um, internal martial arts is this umbrella uh, of styles that are thousands of years old, but they're based on Taoism. And Taoism is really God as the natural world. It's physics, it's five elements, and it's animals. And the movements that people did were to master like authentic movement, to reflect nature, the perfection of nature, the intelligence of animals, the intelligence of the elements through movement. It is martial because it's really also unlike yoga. Say it's about the relationship with the world around you. It's how you interact with the world around you. It's mastering being the center of the relationship. So there's that's the martial part. The internal part is that you're learning how to use energy to move the body, where Western exercises, you go to the gym and you build up big muscles, no pain no gain, like you work hard. But internal martial arts is internal, so you're working energy to work the body. The martial part is your relationship, and the art part is the ability to express the beauty of the universe through movement. So Tai Chi was an amalgamation of all of these styles, the Xinyi, Bagua, Lancho, Tongbei, all these different styles of internal martial arts movements, and then they combined them into this sort of moving philosophy. And Tai Chi is it's only 400 years old, and it's kind of like this theoretical system done in slow motion to teach you how to be in tune with nature. So I use all that after people have done the breath work. I use movement to help people to get rid of all the habit patterns in their body and become natural, like the intelligence of different animals. I'll tell you the 10 animals just so you can think about it. The tiger, cat, snake, chicken, horse, bear, monkey, dragon, hawk, and eagle. And each one of them teaches something about how to live in relationship to nature.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and before we wrap up, Elijah, if our listeners they wish to explore about Effiji Breathwork and also connect with you to seek more wisdom, how they can do that?
Well, if they go to my website, Effiji Breath, EFFIJI breath.com, there's something there for everybody. There's free things and there's programs. The least involvement is you can just sign up for the newsletter. I write almost every day. And then the most is next year in 2025, I have a 9-month program, a trauma release program. Some people are training to become facilitators of the breathwork. Some of it's in person, some of it's online, and people are working directly with me and my business partner, Sarah Sharmoli. So, yeah. And you can just, if you really want to speak to me or have a question, you can just click on the contact and it'll eventually reach me.
Great, great, Elijah. We'll have all the details in the show notes in there for our
Okay.
and thank you to you for joining us today and sharing your incredible wisdom on breathwork trauma and also the powerful teachings from Taoism and internal martial arts. Really, it was such a profound and lovely conversation.
Thank you. It was great to talk to you.
And to all of our listeners, if you are inspired by today's conversation, don't forget to check out Effiji Breathwork and connect with Elijah. We'll have all the details in the show notes. You can also dive into his music and other resources to deepen your practice. And thank you to everyone for tuning into the Mindful Living. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, let us know how we are doing, and share it with someone who could use a little breath of fresh air into their life. Thank you.